New Disabled South presents.
I didn't feel right. I felt like I was having to pretend a whole lot to fit in. It took all my energy just to try to be what they say normal.
From Appalachia to the Gulf Coast, from the Mississippi Delta to the Carolina Piedmont. 14 states, one broken system. In Florida, Stephanie counts every penny to keep her daughter, Lamina, alive. In Mississippi, Jennifer must choose between love and healthcare. In Virginia, Rachel's $40 honorarium dropped their food stamps to $18. In West Virginia, Corey boiled and reused catheters meant for single use because Medicare covered only 4 a month, risking infection and death. In Texas, Diane only survived because her daughter refused to let her die. In Tennessee, Kim watched her mother get dumped from a facility when her Medicaid lapsed. In North Carolina, a 70-year-old was placed in a nursing home against her will, her Social Security controlled by a representative payee she never approved. And tonight, in Alabama, where the faded peach water tower still watches over Clanton, we meet Bianca, a nurse who became a patient, a provider who became dependent on the very programs she once supported, a mother fluent with both sides of the complicated bargain.
I don't know a way out. If I go to work, I'm no longer disabled. If I stay disabled, I'm homeless, carless, futureless. But I got my medicine.
This is how our season ends. Not with resolution, but with revelation. The trap isn't simply poverty. It's systemic, it's spiritual. It's baked into policy that punishes people simply for trying to stay alive. It's a system that forces people to rob Peter to pay Paul, food for medicine, housing for stability, dignity for survival. I'm Stacey Abrams, and this is Dual, the true cost of care.
Dual, the true cost of care. Both sides of a broken system.
Bianca was born in Clanton, Alabama, a place best known for the faded peach water tower that looms over the interstate, a landmark of sweetness. But behind closed doors, her childhood bore no resemblance to the kindly image.
I came from a very abusive background, an abusive family. I've never been able to reach out and get the resources that I really needed. I mean, my mom moved my ex-husband into our house when I was 14 years old and he was 23. She said, help her pay the light bill and buy her living room set. So once again, I was like, I ain't have no say-so. So he was abusive. He picked up where my mama left off at because, she was brutal and abusive.
The abuse was generational, normalized. At 14, her first suicide attempt ended with 6 weeks in Children's Hospital. And still, no one seemed to question it.
I didn't know that I had a traumatic childhood. I didn't know that my mama was abusive to me. I didn't know that my ex-husband was a pedophile and that my mama was trafficking me. I didn't know that because that's all I knew.
She buried the pain and built a career in nursing. First in school, then in the prison mental health unit, then at Bryce Hospital, the state's psychiatric facility. She saw herself reflected in her patients.
I started seeing these people are really sick in here. This are, the ones that we were seeing. I'm like, imagine if they had access to this kind of treatment and stuff on the street. Maybe we could stop them before they got to prison. I had the same trajectory as I saw a lot of those people in there did, right?
By her 30s, Bianca had children, a home, and a steady income of $65,000 a year. but the stable life was a performance she couldn't maintain.
I knew I had some issues, but I wasn't addressing them. It took all my energy just to try to be what they say normal.
In 2008, the pretending ended. Bianca suffered a breakdown, divorce, then a harrowing custody battle that awarded her children to her ex-husband, though he never came for them. But armed with those papers, he did take the kids' Social Security checks.
My mama got $1,000 for one of my kids. My ex-husband got $1,000 for one of my kids, $1,200 for one. I got $1,200. When they got y'all money and y'all coming up here asking me for stuff, I don't even have enough to survive for myself.
Bianca's world collapsed in months, from provider to patient, from steady income to none, from professional authority to bureaucratic invisibility.
The COVID betrayal and the fight for coverage.
Understanding the system, Bianca applied for disability. Then came the wait. Federal law still imposes a 2-year clock before granting Medicare benefits for many who qualify, a relic of the 1970s that measures suffering in months. That's 2 years without income, 2 years of out-of-pocket bills.
Medicare didn't really do nothing for me. I ain't gonna tell no lie. I had to think just then, because they didn't. Medicare didn't do nothing for me. Yeah, I ain't getting no glass. I couldn't get my teeth fixed. Medicare didn't do nothing for me.
Then, during the pandemic, when the safety net was supposed to hold, Social Security cut her off. No warning, just a letter.
Social Security, without saying nothing to me, cut my check off all the way. Okay, so when I called them, they went to saying, well, you had an overpayment, $40-some thousand, this, that, and the other. I said, from what and when?
2 months later, the check abruptly returned. However, the damage was done. Bianca's credit was wrecked. Her path to home ownership had been brutally erased. Now Bianca pays $444 a week for an extended stay motel, $1,776 a month, on a disability check of around $1,300.
You know how much food stamps Alabama gave me? $32. I was paying $815 for rent. They gave me $32.
Despite the hardships, Bianca had a plan. After all, she knew what words to say because once she'd said them for others. In this case, the magic word was waivers. In Alabama, the elderly and disabled waiver can be the difference between a life at home and a life institutionalized. She asked, she fought, and eventually she managed to qualify.
I qualified for full Medicaid when I pushed the issue and got that elderly and disabled because I went into crisis and I started fighting them then. That's how I got full Medicaid.
For Bianca, the waiver changed everything she could keep hold of. Weekly therapy at no cost, transportation to get there, a gym membership for strength and breath, 7 years of relative stability built from 3 ingredients: consistency, access, and time.
When I got on full Medicaid, it changed the trajectory of my life because it allowed me to go to therapy for free every week. It gave me a certain amount of rides, transportation to make sure I got back and forth to therapy. It allowed me to do, to go to Cornerstone, which is like the local gym, and be able to, get out and exercise, more glasses, just a whole lot of stuff. Be able to, so for the last 7 years, I've been able to stabilize with the assistance of having Medicaid now. It's a help.
And then she hit the wall. Medicaid has a draconian rule that polices bank accounts like crime scenes, known as the asset limit. The limit on money saved by a recipient is $2,000. This cap on savings has not moved since 1989, when gas was under $1 and rent didn't swallow whole paychecks. Despite what the people in power claim, asset limits do not prevent fraud. It prevents a vital cushion and prudent planning.
You can only have $2,000 at the first of the month, even though we had got that stimulus money. It couldn't be in my account.
This is the choreography of punishment. Raise your head, lose your help. Try to save, lose your care.
Too sick, not sick enough.
In Alabama, as across the South, survival is never just about medicine. It's about perception, how you look when you ask for help. For Bianca, the demands are contradictory: a performance no one can sustain.
I can't look sick enough. I didn't fit the stereotype that they was looking for. I looked like I had too much, but I ain't had nothing but a good bath and water and vitamin C.
For some, she must appear impaired enough to deserve help. For others, she has to be stable enough to be employable. The double bind of dual eligibility is that you are always being judged against an impossible standard: too sick to work, not sick enough to warrant care. And the consequences are brutal. When Bianca applied for housing through Habitat for Humanity, her diagnosis became the disqualifier, not her income, not her work history.
She told me that, well, what if you go in crisis or something? We can't have you out there working with them tools and stuff. So, okay, here I am, a person with disability. I put that on there, trying to get housing from Habitat for Humanity. But because they perceive that I may be a danger out there around they tools, boy, I ain't never had no violent history. Because of that, I qualify in every other way. But because of that.
Think about what that means. Habitat for Humanity, an organization meant to open doors, had to close them instead because of a stereotype, because mental illness still carries a stigma so powerful it overrides needs, overrides evidence, overrides even a spotless history. Bianca has to prove she is sick enough to deserve care, but not so sick that she's unemployable. Bianca's story echoes across the South. In West Virginia, a woman risking sepsis because Medicare wouldn't cover enough catheters. In Virginia, Rachel lost food stamps because of a $40 committee honorarium. In Mississippi, Jennifer remains unmarried to stay alive. In Arkansas, Jacqueline counts every penny against a federal limit that hasn't budged in 35 years. This isn't just bad math. It's policy designed to ration dignity. Each story is different, each barrier the same. A system that confuses poverty with fraud and punishment with policy.
What it takes to get you stable is what it takes to maintain your stability. Why, when I get stable enough to where I might could venture out and get me a little job to have some kind of quality of life, why you gonna snatch everything from me and cause a domino effect?
This is the impossible math of being dual eligible in America. It's not economics, it is punishment for being poor while disabled. Her question cuts to the heart of it. Why do we build systems that collapse the moment someone tries to stand on their own? Why treat stability like a privilege when we know that stability is what sustains health? The answer is as plain as the Peach Tower in Clanton. Because America has chosen it. Because budgets and biases have long been valued more than people. And Bianca, like millions across the South, is left manufacturing a version of herself that pleases no one, just to survive.
The performance never ends.
As a Black disabled woman in the Deep South, Bianca has lived with every barrier stacked against her, not in abstraction, but in her own body, her own housing applications, her own denial letters.
As a Black disabled person in the South, it's been really hard because it's so many stereotypes already out there. When it comes time to even ask for help sometimes, you're ashamed to ask for help. I was ashamed. Ashamed of being sick. Imagine being ashamed of being sick. And I was.
Shame. That is what our policies too often produce. Not resilience, not empowerment. Shame. Imagine being told that in order to deserve help, you must look impaired enough to meet someone else's definition of sick. Imagine being told in the next breath that if you look too impaired, you cannot be trusted with tools, with jobs, with dignity.
For some people, I got to look crazy in order to feel like I'm entitled to my resources. And then for other people, I got to not look crazy because I'm not qualified for their jobs or their programs because I'm too far gone.
That is the performance. A constant calibration of self for the comfort of others. State workers, landlords, employers, even well-meaning nonprofits. Too sick, not sick enough, always on trial. And what does the system take in return? Not just money, not just time. It seizes futures. If Bianca buys a home while on Medicaid, the state can take it when she dies. The very program meant to protect her penalizes her for trying to leave something behind.
If I buy a house and while I'm on full Medicaid, then you want to take the house. And so I don't deserve to leave nothing here beyond me. So I'm saying that's the poverty trap. So then it's your mama, then it's your grandmama, then it's you, then it's your child, because everybody just keep getting caught up in the same thing.
This isn't inheritance. This is erasure. The intergenerational transfer isn't wealth, it's poverty. From Appalachia to the Gulf Coast, from the Mississippi Delta to the Carolina Piedmont, families are passing down debt, denial letters, and trauma. And yet, Bianca still dreams of what would be possible with just a grace period. The same ask we heard in Mississippi and Arkansas, in Kentucky. A window to test work, to rebuild savings without the threat of losing everything overnight.
And they give me a couple of years or whatever, as long as it gets stable, then I probably won't need that Medicaid no more. But at least let me get on my feet and catch my breath, or you snatch they could have a waiting period, a grace period or whatever.
Like Jennifer in Mississippi and Jacqueline in Arkansas, Bianca dreams of a grace period. Time to try working without losing everything. But she's seen her care workers stop caring, seen leaders grandfathered into power, watching cruelty unfold from behind desks.
I don't think people even care anymore. I think they just got these jobs and they so used to, they got grandfathered in, they watching other people mistreat people, so they think these people don't mean anything, they don't hold any value to society.
What she wants isn't sympathy. It's leadership that doesn't wait to ask, what would I do if this were me? But instead recognizes need and immediately moves to meet it.
We need people in leadership positions that's going to be able to have some sense of empathy. Not sympathy, but empathy, to put themselves in other people's position and say, okay, now, if this was me, what would I do?
Grace. That's what she asked for. Not more punishment, not more paperwork, just grace. But what she finds instead is indifference. Caseworkers who are more interested in rules than lives. Leaders who see cutting budgets as an accomplishment rather than a wound. What Bianca wants is not sympathy, not pity. She wants leaders who act without needing to imagine themselves in her place. Leaders who are sated only when they see need and feel compelled to meet it. That is what empathy looks like in practice. And until that becomes the standard, the performance never ends.
14 states, one broken system.
We've traveled thousands of miles this season. Stephanie in Florida, counting pennies to keep her daughter alive. A young woman in West Virginia, boiling catheters to survive. Jacqueline in Arkansas, a master's degree, but no savings. Jennifer in Mississippi, choosing between marriage and medicine. Rachel in Virginia, punished $22 for earning $40. Diane in Texas, surviving only because her daughter would not let her die. Kim in Tennessee, watching her mother discarded when coverage lapsed. And Bianca in Alabama, a nurse turned patient, forced to prove her worth again and again.
In my stable form, as I am now, and ask me which one of those sides do I want to be on. Neither one. I just want to live. You have got to advocate for yourself. Some people, I understand, it's just not in them. But I feel like if I could take my voice and put this stuff out there, even the people who ain't got nobody can have an advocate.
This is the cost of dual eligibility in America. A system that sustains life while it steals futures. A system that provides medicine but denies dignity, that offers survival but never freedom. 12 million Americans are caught between two programs that don't talk to each other. 10 states are still refusing to expand Medicaid, even as hospitals close and families collapse. Almost 9 out of every 10 dual enrollees live in poverty, with 87% making less than $20,000 a year, forcing them to resort to a life of robbing Peter to pay Paul in order to survive. From Florida to Alabama, from Kentucky to Louisiana, from From Texas to North Carolina, 14 southern states, one broken system. The question is not whether we can afford to fix this. It's whether we can afford not to.
To learn more about Dual, the true cost of care, tell your Dual eligibility story, or to get involved, visit dualcostofcare.com.